And now, to my other duty tonight, to introduce our speaker for the evening. When I joined Mustang Daily, I started reading it even more closely than I had, and I was impressed by a columnist in the Mustang Daily. His name was Kevin Falls. I liked his work so much, I had to get to know this guy, and I did. Kevin was a year in front of me, and after he graduated, he went full-time at his college part-time job. He worked at the Village Squire, Monterey, and what was it? Morrow, thank you. It was the men's shop in San Luis Obispo. Nice suits, shirts, and ties. I was doing television in Santa Maria. I could not afford to shop there. He worked there while I was at KCOI, and on several weekends, we had a lot of fun in San Luis Obispo. So he's retired, I'm still in school, but we're having a good time. In '80, I got my offer for my next job. It was in Boise, Idaho. And I drove over to Kevin's house, and I said, hey man, I'm going on to my next gig. What are you gonna do? And he's like, I don't want to go to a small newspaper. I really don't want to do that. So he stayed, and I couldn't believe it. I am driving out of San Luis Obispo, and one of the best writers I've ever read is working at the Village Squire, and stayed at the Village Squire. Back in the 80s, long-distance phone calls were hellishly expensive. We weren't really letter writers, so I kind of lost contact with Falls. Years later, the word hit me that Falls had written a movie, and it was hitting theaters. Somehow I ran down Kevin. I got him on the phone, and he told me, don't go see the movie. They changed the ending. Don't go see the movie. Come to find out, Kevin did finally go to a small paper in Northern California, did some sports reporting, but he was right. He didn't like it. But I think he knew he could write. Now, I'm not going to go through all his work, but he's created movies and shows, worked with two of the best-known creators of our time, Aaron Sorkin and Dan Fogelman. He ran the writer's room for The West Wing. He's a showrunner, a writer, a creator. He's currently working on a show, in fact, they just started shooting last week, on what he calls, it's my elevator pitch, Kev, Succession in the NFL. It's my pleasure. From haberdashery to Hollywood, and as I've declared, one of the best writers this university has produced. Please welcome my friend and Cal Poly alum, Kevin Falls. Kevin introduced me at the Hall of Fame. Payback's a bitch.
You did get me. Oh my God. You want this? Okay. Oh. I not only went to high school with Claudia Buck, she lived across the street from me in Stockton, California. Yeah, she didn't talk to me much. All right, Grandpa story time. I know what you're thinking, especially my table. We're going to hear about typewriters clacking, bustling newsrooms. Well, buckle up. It's going to be cutting edge. If you walked into the Graphic Arts Building in the fall of '76, say around 3 p.m., you heard Mustang Daily before you ever walked in the newsroom. The urgent pounding of royal typewriters, the satisfying bump of their carriages being swiped right, and my favorite sound of all, the steady thunking of a black 1960s United Press International wire service machine. It was stationed in a tiny room with a window that looked into our newsroom. This UPI teletype was the size of a college fridge, where some of you now keep your White Claws. It was believed to be a hand-me-down from a Metro, which only added to its gravitas. For breaking news, its bell would ring and we'd hustle into the wire room and pick up the scroll of paper gathering at our feet and decide if the news was worthy of making the next morning's Mustang Daily. The wire stories had exotic date lines like Cairo and London and Cape Town and Sacramento. A lot of Sacramento, mostly Sacramento. But it was fresh baked news right out of the oven that I imagined being simultaneously read in newsrooms all over the world. The machines didn't write the copy, people did. Professional reporters paid to write concisely articles to build inverted pyramids of who, what, where, when, and sometimes why, and research facts, sourced facts from cultivated sources, even better, double and triple sources. There were never any spelling errors, just newsprint and the right words in the right order. None of it spoiled by the varicose veins of Jim Hayes' dreaded red pen. Full disclosure number 1. I got a D on the first reporting 2 story I wrote for Mr. Hayes, with a big fat unpublishable scrawled across the top. But the humiliation didn't end there. I didn't know I wrote about it, but this is what I'm about to talk about. Mr. Hayes placed my story on the overhead projector, redacting my name, thank God, and did a 10-minute set of jokes in front of the class that made Nikki Glazer's roast of Tom Brady look like the Sunday sermon. Never at any time did I think our UPI machine wasn't spitting out the truth. To me, the wire machine was the truth machine. The truth was an infinite resource then, but feels finite now. After Watergate, actually after Woodward and Bernstein's All the President's Men, college students everywhere signed on to declare their major in journalism, believing their major mattered. Many of us wanted to make the world a better place. I was one of them. Full disclosure number 2, I was not one of them. After Jim Hayes finished eviscerating my story, I immediately dropped reporting 2, marched to the administration building, and filled out an application to San Francisco State. Fortunately, I never got around to mailing it. Instead, I decided to take my major seriously. I re-enrolled in reporting 2, stuck it out with Mr. Hayes, earned a B-, which felt like a A+, and was staffed on Mustang Daily in the fall of '76. Our student paper was led by the dynamic leadership of editors Steve Churm and Jim Sweeney, who are with us tonight, who carried on the excellence of the previous editors Peter King and Fred Vullen. The irrepressible Craig Ream was the sports editor, and he showed me the ropes, and I eventually took his job when he got bumped to associate editor. Betsy Sussman corrected my mistakes, not unlike the person cleaning up behind the horses in the parade. Mark Looker, Dennis Steers, and Tony Hirsch shot the art for our stories, and of course our motley crew was overseen by the legend-in-waiting himself, Mr. Hayes. Getting my first byline in Mustang was one of the most satisfying moments of my life, right up there with my first writing credit on the West Wing. Thanks to Jim Hayes and my colleagues on the paper, the Mustang Daily was named the best college daily in the state for the years of 1976, knocking out the likes of journalism powerhouses USC, San Jose State, and Fresno State. Most of my friends in the paper graduated and enjoyed long, illustrious careers as journalists, editors, even publishers. Full disclosure number 3, I was not one of them. It took me 5 years to graduate. Don't get all judgy. I had 2-part jobs while I was in school. I was a gig worker before it became a thing. A 5th year at Poly allowed me to spread my wings, and I ventured down the hall to KCPR, where I hung out, with Dave Curley. You can give it up for KCPR. I hung out there with Dave Curley, Kevin Riggs, and Randy Cardoon, all who went on to have successful careers as journalists in TV and radio. It was at KCPR where I got my first taste of show business in a forgettable 5-minute weekly comedy show called Studio 229, hosted by the station's venerable news anchor, Kevin Riggs, who played the straight man. I was allegedly his comedic foil. A couple years ago, Riggs called me and said he had found the lost tapes of Studio 229 in his attic. I said, that's great news. Kevin said, not really, they're intelligible. Still, I began to wonder if I was better at making things up than I was reporting reality. Turns out I was better at writing fiction than I could have ever imagined. Full disclosure number 4. As an intern covering sports for the Eugene Register Guard, I invented a word that made it into the Saturday morning paper. You guys wonder why I didn't like small town newspapers. If you think an editor gets mad if you get a fact wrong, try using a word in a game story that does not exist in the English language. Even though to this day, I think allocades rolls off the tongue better than accolades. My egregious mistake turned out to be a fork in the road. Do I continue to embarrass myself as a journalist while getting copy editors fired? Or do I go another way? I loved movies, I loved comedy. I never thought of it as a career, but why not try it? Despite my mistakes in print, I was a decent writer. I did learn a lot from Jim Hayes' Red Pen, and I started to get the feel of writing, especially saying more with less. This served me well later in life because newspaper stories had to fit in small spaces, just as TV shows had to fit inside rigid time slots. I loved the adrenaline rush of meeting a newspaper deadline, which suited me well for meeting broadcast air dates. And so, with absolutely no fanfare, I embarked on a new career after college, taking with me the lessons I learned at Poly. It was time to go Hollywood. Full disclosure number 5. I moved back home with my parents. But I brought along with me an idea for a movie. So I rolled a piece of erasable bond paper into my Smith Corona portable typewriter and wrote a screenplay about a journalist just out of college who gets a job at a newspaper in Morro Bay. His first week there, a guide from Hearst Castle gets kidnapped and held hostage on Morro Rock. It was inspired by Cal Poly alum Peter King. Peter was working at the Associated Press in San Francisco when he got a call about a school bus full of children that had gone missing in Chowchilla, California. Happy spoiler alert, all the kids were rescued. And Peter King was launched into a long and storied newspaper career. Meanwhile, my screenplay was launched into the fireplace. But I loved writing it. So I wrote another script and another, and I got better and better, and I went from the typewriter to the first Macintosh computer. It took years finding an agent who believed in me, and when I did, he signed me to a movie deal at Disney. Finally, I actually got paid to write screenplays. And then after film critic David Denvey reviewed my first movie, The Temp, by writing, "Kevin Falls should think about a different career." I took his advice and got into television. Then I earned some accolades, some Emmys. I'm proud to tell you that I'm coming up on my 30th year working in television, and I'm exhausted. All because I declared journalism as my major at California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo. I learned from the best and brightest, not just Mr. Hayes, but the other teachers then, and my fellow student journalists, my first role models. You taught me to be disciplined and responsible and professional by acting like professionals. Don't think it would have killed you to teach me how to spell, but guess you're not teachers. Must have been in a hurry to get to happy hour at Cedars. Nothing like an inside joke. Hey, if you're going to be a public speaker, no inside jokes, and don't make them when they're 47 years old. I'm not going to spin to the aspiring journalists here tonight, I'm going to get serious, that it will be easy finding a job out of college, or that working hard and paying your dues in small markets will land you jobs on metros and guarantee you a long career. The media landscape is more complicated now. The traditional news business, like show business, has contracted. Freedom of speech is under siege in this country, from college campuses to late-night talk shows. Government leaders are telling people not to trust a hostile media. Propaganda is peddled as fact, and too many consumers like news that fits neatly into their belief systems. And as if digging for and reporting the news isn't hard enough, now journalists face trolling, doxing, and in many cases, death threats. In other words, we need journalists now more than ever. You are necessary, you matter. You are important as first responders. If you think I'm being hyperbolic, then I submit in my defense something Thomas Jefferson once said: were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter. This university has turned out some great journalists. Many of them are here tonight. But to those students who aspire to follow in their footsteps, you can be this school's greatest generation. And my fellow alumni, it is our duty to support them any way we can. Fortunately, Cal Poly has the best faculty to deliver the journalistic principles that inspired the Jim Hayes and the fundamentals of the Jim Hayes Symposium. They can help you navigate challenges after graduation. And for those who venture into contemporary media, there are positions like digital content writers, corporate media managers, and communication coordinators. Your journalism degree can help companies, agencies communicate effectively to their consumers and clients, and you never know when you set out to do something with your journalism degree like me, that it can end up being something else, but those fundamentals you take with you forever. In my last days at Cal Poly, the word going around Mustang was that these things called VDTs were coming. Remember? Video display terminals, computers. The future. Typewriters are going the way of the DVD. Even worse, I'd also heard they were getting rid of my beloved United Press International wire machine. What were they going to do with my little friend that sped out date lines from Kathmandu, Kalamazoo, and Sacramento? Could I save it from the scrapyard? I thought it might look good in my bachelor pad, maybe with a potted plant on top. My reasoning, I guess, was that nothing impresses a woman more than a fern on a teletype. Full disclosure, number 6, this player didn't lose his virginity until the 3rd night of his honeymoon. You don't see her here tonight, do you? There's a reason. But I couldn't bring my clunky machine with me. I needed to shed weight in order to pursue my dream, not add to it. But I really, really wanted some artifact that would remind me of my halcyon days on Mustang. And so I did something I'm ashamed of. I must confess to a crime. I stole this. United Press International from the wire service machine at Cal Poly. Full disclosure, number 6, I didn't steal it. It's not number 7. I didn't steal it. I just wanted to give it to my character some badly needed edge. I wanted the sign, and I told someone I wanted it, and I'd like to think it was Jim Hayes, but I have no sources to confirm that. The truth is, the sign has been with me for as long as I can remember. But now it's time for an artifact of Cal Poly journalism's storied history to come home where it belongs, hopefully in a newsroom. Thank you. I can't tell you, it's been an honor and a privilege, and I am not worthy to speak to you tonight. Thank you.